It is time. I'll do this on Wednesday. The Herd Hierarchy.
Herd Hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin.
All right, I give you the 11th team. They didn't make it in, and this is injuries. If Dez Bryant was healthy, I would have Dallas in there, but he's not, and they squeaked out a win. Tony Romo, 27th career game-winning drive without Dez. I love their offensive line. But now I've got no DeMarco Murray. Now I've got no Dez. Now I've got no Orlando Scandrick. You can only do that curl pattern to Jason Witten so many times. I've got the Cowboys at 11th.
Number 10.
You know, I think Miami's limited, but I think Tannehill can move. He can make throws. I think his coach believes in him, and I think their defensive line with Ndamukong Suh is for real. The Redskins' final 5 drives ended with 3 punts, a pick, and a turnover. At the end of that football game, Miami physically looked elite.
Number 9.
St. Louis Rams front 4 had Russell Wilson under pressure all day. Robert Quinn, 2 sacks. Aaron Donald, young player, 2 sacks. And Nick Foles. I'm not a huge Nick Foles guy, but he throws a pretty good deep ball, and he did late to Kendrick. So I've got the Rams for the first time ever in my Herd Hierarchy.
Number 8.
This is the best Buffalo Bills roster in, 20 years. The Colts have 3rd or 4th best offense in the league last year. I think it was 3rd, and they didn't move the ball at all in the first 3 quarters. Tyrod Taylor, quarterback, he was efficient. With that defense, efficient at quarterback wins you a lot of games.
Number 7.
Why doesn't anybody acknowledge the Arizona Cardinals? I mean, it's funny to me. They beat the Saints. Healthy Carson Palmer, 3 touchdowns, 307 yards. Maybe it's because the Seahawks were in the division. Then Harbaugh used to be in the division. And Jeff Fisher's the veteran, and Bruce Arians is kind of down there in Arizona. That's a real football team with playmakers on both sides.
Number 6.
My surprise team in the NFL this year, I think they'll win their division going away. The Kansas City Chiefs, they led the Texans 27-9 at half. Moved the ball at will despite J.J. Watt of Houston terrorizing the backfield. I think the Chiefs, if you look at what they do offensively with Jeremy Maclin now, a little more spark, young defense, legit pass rushers, top secondary, and I think Andy Reid's one of the top 4 coaches in the NFL. I think Kansas City's going to be playing in January.
Number 5.
Cincinnati, and I kind of thought they topped out. But that game against the Raiders was such a disparity in talent. Sunday was the Bengals' first ever win over the Raiders in Oakland. Only thing the Raiders did was a couple of garbage TDs late. If you watch that game 8 minutes in, it felt like Notre Dame, Texas. Like you really wanted to sit down and watch that game, and 8-9 minutes in, you're like, this is a complete mismatch. Cincinnati at 5.
Number 4.
You can't deny what Seattle is. Winning in St. Louis was going to be tough for anybody, and the Rams front defensively has given the Seahawks trouble for years. They've lost 3 of the last 4 against the Rams in St. Louis, and the Hawks defense allowed 350 yards in 3 of their last 4 games going back to the playoffs last year. That's the story. It is not the same Seattle defense. They're not quite as young, not quite as hungry, and Cam Chancellor's not available, but it is still an elite front office, a playmaking quarterback, Marshawn Lynch, an above-average offensive line, and they're pretty good in the box defensively.
Number 3.
I don't care the Eagles lost. The second half, they were unbelievable. Playmakers on offense in the backfield. At tight end was Zach Ertz. At wide out, I think Kiko Alonso solidifies a linebacking core. I think their corners are still up for debate, but I think Chip Kelly's revolutionary. I think there's a lot of haterade out there. I think he's going to go down if he stays in this league as a guy who dominates that division. If he stays for 10 years, he's going to win it 7 or 8 times. I really think Chip just needs a healthy quarterback.
Number 2.
New England Patriots opened the year with a 28-20 win over the Steelers. 4 touchdowns for Brady. 3 went to Gronk. They're not as good defensively because they lost Darrelle Revis, Channing Crowder at corner, but they're still defensively When they introduce the Patriots defense before the game like they do in those big TV games, it's a bunch of college All-Americans who have segued seamlessly to the NFL. They've got a real defense. It's a real defense. And they've got a rookie defensive lineman many think will be the next Vince Wilfork. I have him at number 2.
Number 1.
Green Bay didn't play very well. And for the record, a lot of teams on the road don't play well in that opening half on the road. Green Bay didn't against Chicago, but Aaron Rodgers threw just 5 incompletions, 31-23. Remember, bad teams or average teams like Chicago, they still believe in themselves the first month in that locker room. Chicago in 8-9 weeks, Green Bay may thump them. But a bad team in week 1, Cleveland and the Jets are not great teams. In that locker room, they've convinced themselves they are. So don't take too much from Green Bay struggling. To me, Ted Thompson has crafted, I would argue, maybe the second best roster in the league, and they're breathing down Seattle's neck. They had them beat last year in Seattle in that NFC championship game.